Hello, thank you for tuning in. I wanted to respond to an overwhelming question that's been brought to me several times, and I figure I'd just go ahead and address it online. Is what is the greatest threat toward or to the church? And this is something that goes along with church history. You know, not only the denominations, but how churches have evolved over time, how they function, the governance of the church, their piety, um, and so I've heard responses that it's the congregation. I've heard responses that it's the pastor. I've heard a mixture that it's the congregation and the pastor that is the greatest threat to the church. One that I lean into is that it's sin. Now, when you say sin, that drums up some pictures and maybe a list of things that some believers and even non-believers think of when they hear sin. So, sin is a very broad word, especially if you're wanting to narrow it down to being a threat to or toward the church. So, in a way, you have to define this sin. One simple definition is whatever it is that takes you or separates you from God. That's a good explanation. Another definition can be something that you continually do that would separate you from God. So, it's not just so cut and dry. There's a lot of roots and definitions and examples of sin that you can put out there. So, one that I believe is overwhelming in the church and even in the world itself is emotion. Now, one would never think that emotion would fall into the category of sin, and so I would like to frame it in the way that emotion, unchecked, not disciplined, or not shaped correctly, can separate you from God, can lead to a separation from you and the Father. As a believer and even as a non-believer, our emotions are not just a spiritual type thing, but emotions, if you actually look it up and study, emotions carry with it an actual physical element to it, that the chemicals and the reaction in your brains produce these things. So now sometimes when people say emotions and feelings, they use those words interchangeably, but emotions and feelings are not the same. Now, one can produce or lead to feelings. In some ways, feelings define how we feel, or not feel, but how we see, how we think about stuff. That's emotions. And through those emotions, it can produce and give shape, and that would be called the feelings. So I want to really kind of concentrate on emotions being that threat toward the church, from people that are non-believers to people that are believers within the church, that emotions, without being guided, without being shaped, without discipline, it can be a terrible threat to the church. And so this is something I'd like to talk about and take more time. In fact, I'm going to try to bring some people that specialize in this field of emotions, depressions, things that happen in the brain, endorphins, and how our mind is shaped and controlled in this area. And without discipline, direction, structure, how emotions that can change the mapping system of our mind can actually lead us or keep us from the Father. So we will dive into this, and this is something that I believe deserves to take more time than just some quick sound bite. So keep that in mind. Maybe do some research until my next video. Emotions, to me, along with the sin aspect, is the greatest threat to the church. Now, when I say the sin aspect of it, again, the definition that I'm going to lean into, or the example I'm going to lean into with sin, because that's such a huge word, is the idea of what can keep you or what will separate you from God. So until next time, thank you for coming.